இங்கே குழுமி உள்ள அனைவருக்கும் என் முதற்கண் வணக்கம். தமிழ் entrepreneurs பார்க்கறது வந்து this is my first opportunity. So I truly welcome you all to take entrepreneurship seriously. And if you need any help, always reach out to me. I'll be glad to provide my 2 cents. Okay? So without further ado, let me begin for today's presentation. I'm going to speak mostly in English, and there might be an opportunity to talk a little bit Tamil later on. So I'm a professor for the last 20 years in the pharma and the healthcare space. I do a lot of research in understanding how entrepreneurs think, how entrepreneurs behave, and how entrepreneurs succeed. Over the years, I've worked with more than 30 different entrepreneurs in different industries, but primarily in the pharmaceutical and healthcare space. And I was able to see right from the inception to growth and success. In the way, there are many failures as well, but you would really appreciate, and we have 2 great entrepreneurs here who have done it really, and kudos to them. It's just not easy to do it, and you will be hearing from them very soon. So my goal is to kind of give my perspective on research, what happens in entrepreneurship, who are the key factors that drive entrepreneurship, and how they succeed. So with that said, I'm going to go through my presentation. As I said, my primary background is in pharmacy. I went to Madras Medical College in pharmacy, did my undergraduate there, then I got my master's in Business Technology. I worked in the industry in GSK. Before GSK, it was Glaxo. Launched a drug called Zantac into the market. After that, I had opportunity to be on and off with Pfizer. Went for my PhD program in Wisconsin. And recently, I had about a year's experience working in the global commercial team at Pfizer, launching a drug called Pravanar on the global side. I also work with a lot of startup companies right now in the advisory board, a few of them. And the primary idea there is to kind of get through the initial stages and make them successful. That's what I do, and I learn in the process, and I understand what they do as well. To kind of summarize it, I'm going to give you a little bit background. Being a professor, you're going to hear a professorial conversation, but it's up to you to get some understanding of that. Entrepreneurs create new stuff. That's pretty much it, right? They find new opportunities to create new things. And you need to think about what that new thing is. So they identify a key problem, and then they find a way to get to some type of solution, and using that solution to meet a need in the marketplace. There is needs, there are unmet needs, and what entrepreneurs do is to meet those needs. So there is a solution for the problem leading to better outcomes. And there is a business around that where you kind of make the revenue from that. So the question first is entrepreneur made or just born? Are they automatically born, or they actually become entrepreneurs? Is it genetic? And so it depends on what you research on. So over the years, I've looked into a lot of understanding of, are they made? Are we trying to bang at the door, which is actually, if you don't have the DNA, you can't be an entrepreneur. Is that true? So what I found out was the following. That is that entrepreneurs, if you think about the probability of starting a business, the research indicates that they are born. Right? They're born. And that's kind of curious. Like, really? What about the others who do not have the DNA? Is that even possible? Well, what we found was that there is a high correlation between the guys who actually start as part of the family. They have family connections, right? So the brother, the aunt, the uncle, somebody has business experience. And for them, it runs in the family. And we know a lot of families that has them, right? We know our friends and others who actually come from that type of background, right? So there is an element of being born. So what about the others? So we looked at the whole idea of what makes a successful entrepreneur. Are they born or made? And the research actually shows that if you think about the probability of success of running successfully the company, we find that there are often made. There is this whole nurture thing that often drives entrepreneurs to succeed. So with that said, it's not all nature. Nature do play a role, but nurture is the bigger part of the puzzle. So you can learn how to be an entrepreneur. That's the good news, okay? So it is just not genetics. It's, you have more entrepreneurial capacity than you think. So we're all entrepreneurs in different ways. The fact that you're here, you're entrepreneurial. Think about that, right? You made your way, you came here, you found the opportunities to succeed, and you're here. And same thing applies in whatever you do. So with that said, let me kind of make another kind of distinction between an entrepreneur and an inventor. A lot of times, we love to invent. We're constantly thinking about new ideas, and we all do that on a daily basis. And as these new ideas come, you ponder on a few minutes, and then you forget, and you think about another idea. And we do that every day. A lot of times, the inventors are the one who actually think about these new ideas all the time. It comes to them, and they think about it, and then they move on to the next idea. Sometimes they take it and make them into some meaningful product or service, but they really don't fully move it forward. How many people have patents on different things, and how often actually they make a company out of that? You would be shocked. A lot of people have a lot of patents, but they really don't become companies, okay? And that tells you that you are an inventor, but you're not an entrepreneur. So what's the distinction there? So what the distinction is, the person who's an entrepreneur has the ability to convert that invention into a commercial, viable product or service that's adaptive. So that's important. That's ability to mobilize the technology to something meaningful for the real world. That's what entrepreneurs do. So with that said, it's two pieces of the puzzle. You need to know who you are. You need to know who you are. So there is this whole idea of novelty, new idea, new product, and there's also make it work into a company. The skill sets are different. So the DNA, why they are different, let me kind of make that distinction, and then I will go into talking about successful entrepreneurs. When you have to think about new ideas, and this is over experimentation with a lot of different startup companies, a lot of innovators and their conversations, and there's quite a bit of literature on this as well. The innovators have the ability to make some unique connections. They would have gotten experience in some discipline or some background, some friends. They make some interesting connections. That's what makes it interesting ideas to come about. That's association, the ability to kind of make the connections to different unrelated things. Creativity is all about that, and there's a whole conversation one can have about lateral thinking and all that stuff, so we can talk about that if you're really interested in. Asking a lot of questions, thinking about questioning. Why does it work? How does it work? How do they make money? What is happening in the situation? Why did that company fail? Asking those questions helps you to refine yourself, to figure out what do's and don'ts of the business. A lot of watching, observing how somebody does it, what are they doing, and this is where it becomes valuable to have a good mentor. A mentor will be a huge asset to yourself because they will help you and shepherd you through the process. And having somebody like that would be very valuable. As our officers here mentioned about networking, I think that's pretty much your resource. Having good connections, having the right mentors, and also a kind of well-wishers, and somebody who actually will question your decisions in the network matters because they actually move you forward to the outcomes. And we found one of the strongest causality relationship is having the network, which actually will make you to move forward. Experimentation, making mistakes, trying new things, failing and figuring out is part of the game. If somebody doesn't want to try, want to succeed the very first time they try, forget about it. You're not an entrepreneur. You should be willing to lose. You should be willing to you should have the thick skin to survive, so to say. Because here we have Dr. Ranganathan here, and you know him for more than 20 years now. He has gone through, you can't imagine, right? but he has made his way, he's persistent, and he has a real success story here. So we'll talk about that as well. And finally, any particular idea, you need to kind of incubate it over time. It's not like today an idea, tomorrow, but actually grow them. It's like a small plant. You got to water them, you got to take care of them, you got to give the sun, you got to give the air. It has to grow into something meaningful. And that's what these ideas would become. Okay? The second part is that this is something most of us do. And that is we are good at implementation. Meaning, our idea is thought, the product is there, and our job is to make it to market. There's a lot of marketing managers, professionals, implementers who are implementers. Basically, they analyze, they plan, they're detail-oriented, and they actually are self-disciplined. So what's needed for a company to start? Well, if you think about it, you need both. We can't survive without one or the other. If you think about an entrepreneur, the inventor is very good in finding new stuff. The implementer is very good in actually implementing things. You work for a company, you do your thing. What's more important is a combination. So how do you get that? Are they born? No, they're not. And most of the time, you need to partner with the right person to help you through the process. If you're an inventor, partner with an implementer who can take you through the process. If you're the other way, you know what I'm talking about. So that's important. So knowing yourself who you are is the first step. You can't just like thinking of an entrepreneur. You got to be honest to yourself and say, who am I? What can I do? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And how do I do this? I think that's the starting point. Because once you self-reflect yourself and be self-aware of your capabilities, it makes it a lot easier to see who you partner with and do things. Over the years of research, and given the short time, I'm going to kind of breeze through this, that there are different models of innovation. And there are some published research on that, and I've made my amendments to this particular model, that innovation doesn't have to be all technology oriented, all product oriented. There are other things one can do, okay? So you can offer, different business models. You can offer different payment models. You can improve processes and how things are done. You can figure out new ways of looking at information and data. And in every discipline you are in, you can apply this that will separate you from the competition. And that's what it is. So every idea, you should be ahead of the curve. You should know what's coming. What's the next flow, next wave of change and opportunity? You should think about that. What would 5 years from now look like? What is this particular discipline in 5 years would be? Understanding those trends, understanding what that future need is. If you start right now, you will get there. And that's the idea. Anything that you add value is important. Be a big fish in a small pond. Have you heard of that term? Be a big fish in a small pond. If you find the right opportunity and you be the big fish, somebody will gobble you up. That's what we call exit strategy, right? Somebody will take you. Be customized. Because I think any discipline there's competition. You got to do something unique. And that's important. And finally, be simple. If it's way too complicated, the customer don't understand, forget about it. You can't sell anything. It has to be simple and really interesting solution. And that's what customers want. And so that's the kind of the layout of the land. So what makes the characteristics of an entrepreneur? And I'm in the lecture mode now. So I'm going to give you some examples of this. Right? First of all, be curious. Curiosity is the mother of invention. We all know that, right? So curiosity is thinking about, hey, why is it happening? What's happening? I think so thinking about every possible opportunity is a good one. Second thing is be creative. Be creative. How many of you actually, when you drive home, you take the same road going home? Same road, same traffic light, same turns. How many of you do that? Most of us do that, right? Have you ever tried like going to another route? Just for the heck of it? I have 7 ways to go from Downingtown to my school.
When there is too much traffic.
Exactly, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Trust me, because once you know one stop, I'm not waiting. I've got 4 other ways to go right from there, right? That makes it really fun. And I try that. And I think you should too. You don't have to do the same thing. What happens is every time the new exposure happens, you learn something new. Be passionate about anything you do. Passion is very important. There will be low time, high time, and I've seen many companies fold because of lack of passion. They start, don't go too far, they lose steam, so to say. They need the steam, you need the fire under you. Be proactive. My research shows innovation and proactive are two critical factors that drive entrepreneurship. You need to make that connection. You need to make that one phone call. You need to actually go and be there in the sun, in the rain, figuring out exactly how it works. Victory Brewery is right here. And yesterday I had the opportunity to talk to the owner who owns the business. And he told me when he was 21 years old and he wanted to start a beer company, right? So where people make the best beer? Well, they make in Germany. Germany is one of the countries that they do it. 21 years old, they just left US, went to Germany, and about 18 months they learned how to actually brew beer. 21 years old. Go there and figure it out how it actually made. Come back and they start the company. Okay? Today it's a multi-million-dollar company, very successful, right? And they just formed a joint venture with a company out of New York. Very entrepreneurial guy. And someday you guys should have him as a speaker. He's an excellent speaker. So, proactive. Tolerance to risk and failures. You have the ability to kind of keep up with some uncertainties all the time. Nothing's sure. I think if you're very predictable, it doesn't work. You need to take that risk. Persistent, never give up. Flexible. You started with the idea, if some mentor tells you, don't go there, do this, you should be willing to bend and mend. And that's what entrepreneurs do. They find their way up. And so always be flexible, resourceful. Everything that you do is resourceful. Networking, financing, connections. Be resourceful. If you can't, find somebody who will do it for you. Bold and decisive. Made a decision, stick with it. Stick with it. Because I think even if it fails, stick with it. And that way it will give you some kind of guidelines of what you're doing and how you're doing. Think win-win, win-win. It's not a zero-sum game. Entrepreneurship is not a zero-sum game. I spoke to many of the entrepreneurs, and what they say is, you help your friends succeed. You help your friends and family, whoever you're working with, to succeed. If my friend is starting a company, help them. Not like, it's not a zero-sum game. If I win, you lose. That's not the way to look at it. I was talking to a professor, Dr. Tarun Khanna, he's at Harvard, and he talks about organizational culture. And what he said, what we talked about, he's been asked by the Indian government to change the culture of entrepreneurship in India. And we had a long conversation. At the end of it, there's lack of trust. And one of the conclusion was that we don't actually, and I'm talking about back in India, that there is this, there are subcultures, there are families that help each other, everybody succeed in the business. But in a larger picture, they're not helping each other as much as they could. Here there is a culture that they help each other out within that network. So if you have a network, help each other out. And I think being win-win is very critical. Finally, your time is prime time. Make sure your time is protected and work with that. So I have this, actually I was talking to Ganesh earlier on. Time matters, okay? So this is a Dilbert cartoon. So I like your internet business idea, let's do it. That's what the manager says. Dilbert says right away, I sent you that idea a year ago. Since then, 5 companies have gone IPO in this space. And says, we can buy one of them. And Dilbert says, if you, if buy one, you mean one share or one stock of this company? Because it's too late to start a company, right? Just too late. So he gave an idea for 1 year. You got to act on it. You got to do something. So what do successful companies do? Now, 5 minutes? Okay, I'll keep up my time. So successful companies do time and time again is have some good mentor to start with, and I think that's the key. Ask for help. Don't hesitate. Don't try to do it yourself. I think that's a mindset that we think like, okay, we can handle everything. Not true. I go for help to everyone. Okay, as much as I do, I call up people, talk to them, ask them questions, and because I think it helps you to be successful. And they also know you're working on something. And they will call you back and say, hey, Dr. Thani, remember that stuff you're working on? Why don't you touch base with this person? And that's how I make my connections. Secure invention. If you have an invention that can be protected by IP, make sure you get your patent and all that before you talk to people about it. Sometimes patents are very serious stuff. Have the right working group that will help you with that. If you don't have a patent and if you have a trademark, Protect the trademark. Those are important things to do. Third, understand your customer and the market you're going to serve. If you don't understand what they need and why they need it, you will never be successful. The first question anybody who gives you money would ask is, how much do you understand your customer? What do they do? How they do it? Why do you think your product would be needed in this context? How big is the market in that context? So I teach a whole competitive analysis to my class, my students, my graduate students in the MBA program, and we go through this exercise pretty regularly to kind of give them a feel for it. Also, understand how you're going to make money. What's your money-making opportunity? Is it going to be based on volume, based on price, based on subscription, based on what is your model of business? And why you think you can get the customer do that? What happened to Apple in the last few days? Stock tanked, right? I don't know how many of you own stocks. Stock tanked. They said they're not going to talk about number of cell phones they're going to sell anymore. Market was very upset. They said, like, we're going to go totally the service route. We're going to be selling more on the iTunes. They just are trying to get into the movie business. They're going to compete with Netflix. And they want to start producing movies on the side. They want to become totally a service ecosystem through all their devices, providing services and competing in that space globally, which is a very interesting model to think about. Because subscription business is very successful for Amazon. If you look at Amazon's success story, their margins are very small, but they make a lot of money in their service side of things. AWS service has really exploded in the last year. And if you look at their money that they've made through third party who's selling through Amazon, they make a ton of money through that. So you can see their business model has evolved from product distribution to completely a service landscape. Understanding how that works and how you can succeed, you got to think about it. Going solo or partnership, interesting decision. I got to ask a partner who has been through this. I have seen many partnerships, extraordinarily successful partnerships, and I've seen miserable partnerships where things have failed. Why? Well, because people have opinions, and people have mindsets, and people have interests, and you have to be on the same page. And to partnership to succeed, up or down, you got to stay together. Make sure it works and make it work. Also, find out how you're going to incorporate the company. Should it be an S corporation, C corporation, you have B corporation these days. You want to set up as an LLC, you want an LLP. There are many different formats of creating companies, and knowing which one works for you is very important. Have a board of advisors who can help you through the process. A lot of science companies require board of advisors because they help you through they prevent you from making early mistakes. They make sure that you don't commit that. Have an effective team. Once you create the company, have an effective team. Culture is very critical. I think Mano mentioned that. Culture is very critical. Companies succeed and fail because how much they believe in things and how they work together as a team. And that's very critical. And I found out, in pharmaceutical launches of drugs, I study them, and I find many drugs actually do not succeed in their launches purely because the team is not on the same page. That's the number one predictor of loss or failure of a product. The team is not on the same page. Knowing your financial options. Get money from friends and family first before you go to a venture capitalist. Venture capitalist will eat you alive. But there is a time that you got to start with the steps and processes you have to go before you get there. And so we can talk about that conversation. Have a plan. Keep it simple. Not 40 pages, 5 pages. Plan that actually means something and your investor actually understands what you're talking or trying to do. The investor loves simple plans, but effective plans, and make sure that you make the pitch that they will fund. I always say if you can talk about your business in 30 seconds, you have a better chance of getting the business or invention or funding. Finally, have a strategy in marketing. I live the world of marketing. Marketing actually makes real big important thing. It should not be an afterthought. It should be proactive thinking. And find the right people. Get the talent you want, because they make you look so good when all of the people who work for you are better than you. You look so good. And having that is important. and finally execute, execute, execute. So I think I ran over my time. I want to keep that in. Thank you very much. That is this business structures that you can look at later on if you're really interested in. That's what we talked about today. Basically, we are different. Know who you are, know the characteristics, and finally, entrepreneurs succeed based on these characteristics that my research shows. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Thani.